Hello, I'm Charles Kovess, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Kovess Show, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening via podcast. In this week's episode, I am challenging you to become more consciously aware of whom you admire, of who your heroes are. From this process, you can gain deeper insights into the next steps in your development, in your learning journey. There's also a valuable insight to be learnt. Those you admire have qualities that are admirable inside you. You have the qualities of those whom you admire. Isn't that an empowering and inspiring concept? So this episode aims to provoke you and inspire you to spend more time learning about your heroes, about their keys to successful lives, about their disciplines and their mistakes, so that you can emulate them or learn what you need to avoid. I'm confident these ideas will help you on your ongoing successful life journey in these challenging times. Our format for this show is, firstly, I share the episode's big idea. Secondly, I share 6 resources to help you implement the insights from the big idea. Thirdly, I review key happenings during the week. And then finally, the foundational principles of this show and my further details about my background now appear after each week's unique content. So, let's go with today's big idea. Are you clear on who you admire? Are you clear on who your heroes are in your life? Who would you most like to emulate? Who would you most like to be like? Strange way of saying it, but that's what I feel like saying. There's real benefits for you in being consciously aware of who you admire, of who your heroes are. It helps to decide the next steps in your life, in clarifying your path as you move forward in your life. And there's another big factor. You admire these people, they're your heroes, because their admirable qualities are inside you. Isn't that a great idea? The people who you think are superstars have got inside them what you've got inside you. Otherwise, you wouldn't admire them. Give yourself credit. Don't focus relentlessly on all of your weaknesses, your failings, your inabilities. There are far more things you can't do than what you can do. You have all these wonderful, admirable qualities inside you, but if you keep beating yourself up because you focus on what you can't do, you will feel like crap most of the time. That's not a great way to live life. So I urge you to appreciate and reinforce the good, the beautiful, wonderful qualities that you have inside you. On top of that, you can add yourself to your list of heroes, because you can become your own hero if you act in particular ways. If you act more clearly in the ways that you admire, and then suddenly you say to yourself, I am proud of myself. I am my own hero. And I've got a great quote to share with you to really reinforce that idea. It sounds a bit, egomaniacal, narcissistic, but it's not. Now let me share with you who I admire, who my heroes are. And it's an interesting distinction between, hey, I admire that person versus that person is my hero. I don't need to get so much into making that distinction here, but it's one for you to think about. You might admire somebody, but they're not your hero. Well, cover both angles, because the same principle applies. If you admire them or they're your heroes, their admirable qualities are inside you. So I admire Sir John Monash, Australia's greatest general, and some knowledgeable people say, Australia's greatest man of all time. He was Jewish, born in 1865, and was knighted by King George V, I think, or the fifth, I think, on the field of battle, the first time in 200 years that had happened during World War I. His life was an amazing litany of amazing achievements, and yet he was flawed. He wasn't a perfect individual. An amazing planner, thinker, he was a qualified engineer, qualified lawyer. I admire Kevin Sheedy, a football coach for Australian football. I admire coffee. Hang on, that wasn't part of the deal. Anyway, I do admire coffee. I admire the coffee makers. I admire the coffee growers. Woohoo! Kevin Sheedy coached Essendon Football Club from 1980, I think for 25, 27 years. And he's a man that's constantly being innovative, creative, willing to take risks, willing to make mistakes, willing to have a go, willing to put ideas out there. I admire Winston Churchill. I admire his willingness to really never give up and to tell the British people in 1940, when all looked lost, that we will never surrender. We will never surrender. Just listen to some of those speeches. And he was flawed in so many ways. And now the woke culture is trying to cancel him. What a pack of idiots. What a pack of idiots. I call them idiots. The cancel culture, the woke culture. I admire Buckminster Fuller, a man who died in 1983, an American who was awarded 47 honorary doctorates. Many of you have heard me talk about him in the past. He spent his life, he is a hero of mine, he spent his life trying to work out the role of humanity on this planet and the way to make this whole planet work for everybody rather than for a minority. I admire Sidney Meyer, who came to Australia as a refugee, as an immigrant, and set up the most amazing retail empire. I admire him because of his passion, because of his insight, because of his willingness to do hard work, of his willingness to come into establishment Melbourne, and build up an amazing empire. And he was Jewish, and then the establishment poo-pooed him, but his contribution to this state, to this country, was remarkable. There are many other people I admire. There are not many that I would call my heroes, but I look at these people and I look at the challenges they had in their life. We tend to look at these people as being super successful, but when you read their biographies, it really becomes amazingly obvious how hard they worked and the challenges they faced. So we can be deluded by this idea that these successful people, these admirable people, these heroes didn't have those hard times. Yes, they did. And the greater their achievement, in almost all cases, the greater their struggle, the greater their self-doubts. But they kept going. That's the message to you. And that's why passion is so important, so that you have the energy source to keep going down the path that is the right one for you, inspired by those you admire, inspired by those who are your heroes. So let's now examine some resources to help you implement some insights from today's big idea, to help you understand the relevance of the big idea to your life and to the decisions you're going to make today and tomorrow and this week. And I'm confident these resources, I always look for resources that are going to be simple to use, simple reminders to you of the big idea that we talked about. Now, the song of the week is, can you guess? Whitney Houston, The Greatest Love of All. It's a powerful song in the way that she sings it. And there's this beautiful second stanza. Everybody searching, I'm not going to try and sing Whitney Houston, by the way, so don't worry. Everybody searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone who fulfilled my needs. A lonely place to be, and so I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadows. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. So I urge you to remind yourself that you are lovable, you are admirable, and loving yourself liberates you to be true to who you are. If you don't love yourself, then you'll hide your light. My recommended book is to get a biography, the best biography that you can find of one of your heroes. I've read many biographies of the people who I admire, of my heroes. I urge you to do the same. Pick one. If you discover a wonderful biography, let me know. Send me an email. My spiritual tip this week is to meditate on the life of one of your heroes. Meditation is a way that you access your soul, your spirit, your heart. You shut off your mind and you let, if you like, universal information come into you about your hero. Spend some time meditating on one of your heroes and see what insights you get into adopting a new discipline, a new behavior, a new way of thinking, a new belief. Maybe you've got beliefs that your hero did not have, and by meditating you discover those beliefs that will help you, because your beliefs drive your behavior. My quote this week is from Gary Ryan Blair. And his quote is about being your own hero. And it's somewhat long, but it's worth listening to. To be your own hero means choosing yourself. It means getting emotionally committed to a cause, problem, or project, which in turn enables you to go places others are afraid to go, to try things others are afraid to try, and to be the kind of courageous person others are afraid to be. That's what it means to be your own hero. Think about what cause, what problem, what project inspires you so that you do become your own hero. My health tip. I've been reading a lot about the dangers of certain types of skincare products. So my health tip is take an interest in what you are putting on your skin. So in these challenging times, anything that could impact on your health is worth looking at. And adding stuff onto your skin could be one of those things that might be of value to you. So check that out. And now, a spot of humor. And I thought I would look up some interesting, humorous, funny stories about one of my heroes, Winston Churchill. Lady Nancy Astor, who entered the House of Commons in 1919 as its first woman member, had few betters in the art of vicious repartee, but she did have some, and Winston Churchill was one of them. After one hot and heavy parliamentary set-to, Lady Astor is reported to have said to Churchill, "Winston, if you were my husband, I would poison your coffee." "If you were my wife, Nancy," replied Churchill suavely, "I would drink it." I've got another one for you. This is a great story of his wit and his wonderful ability with the English language. And there were not many who could match Winston Churchill when it came to sounding the proper notes on the instrument we call the English language. And it infuriated him to have pedantic mediocrity squeeze his words into a grammatical straitjacket. When some nameless critic corrected a Churchillian sentence on the basis of the old principle that a preposition was not something we ought to end a sentence with, Churchill countered with a furious note of his own on the page. It read, "This is the kind of nonsense up with which I will not put." And then lastly, it's said that a hostile voter once accosted Winston Churchill immediately after an election in which Churchill had retained his seat in Parliament. The voter said with a sneer, "I presume we may expect you to continue to be humbly subservient to the powerful interests that control your vote." To which Churchill replied with a growl, "I'll thank you to keep my wife's name out of this." What a brilliant man. What a brilliant man. So, take the steps in this week's big idea to make a difference to the next steps that you take in your life, to make a difference in your life. A life that I believe is meant to be all that you're capable of making it. My aim for this show is to provoke you, to inspire you, to educate you, to excite you about the idea of examining your life now and doing so for the rest of your life, to increase your levels of self-awareness, to ensure that you are on the path of pursuing your passion. I invite you to subscribe to this podcast, to this YouTube channel. I invite you to share this, if you enjoyed it, with your family, with your friends, with your work colleagues. I invite you to discover more about the Self-Awareness and Passion Quest, an executive coaching program one-on-one with me at charlescoves.com, and visit coves.com for corporate programs and lots of other free resources. You can access my first two books, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance, on each of those websites. Now, let's review some key happenings during the week in my life, in Julie's life, and in the life of the planet. As usual, each week I moderated 2 meetings of the Medical Doctors for COVID Ethics, 2 global meetings on Mondays and Wednesdays. The guest presenters this week were both people with deep experience in analysing data that's put on government websites relating to you-know-what, and the fraudulent data that is used in putting information up on websites and then manipulated by government. And then Dr. Claire Craig also spoke about the research that is being used to justify what's being done to children, what's proposed to be done to children. It is literally fraudulent. So getting their insight, being able to ask them questions for hours on end was most insightful, beneficial. And these meetings of doctors, of scientists, of journalists, of lawyers, legal strategists like me are most useful in getting deep down into what's actually happening on our planet that makes these times so challenging. Julie and I also host our weekly foam meeting, Fighters Opposing Autocratic Maniacs. So if you want to receive an invitation to those meetings, Friday nights at 7 p.m, please get in touch with us. We had an executive committee meeting of the hemp, of the Australian Industrial Hemp Alliance. So there's some big things happening in hemp. And I'm also on the international board, the Federation of International Hemp Organisations. And there is only good news around what's happening with hemp and the solutions that it can provide to our planet. Healthy products, healthy people, healthy planet, healthy profits. HP by 4. I'm very excited by what hemp can do for us. And what a global game changer hemp is in agribusiness. I've noticed that suddenitis continues to abound. There's a mysterious sudden adult death syndrome. I don't think it's mysterious at all. I'm sure you know what's causing it, but these stupid authorities, people in position, are declaring that it's mysterious how all these young people are dying suddenly. Who knew? Tour de France started this week. I'm a cyclist, have been for many years, triathlons for over 35 years. So it was lovely to see Simon Clark, a 20-year experienced Tour de France competitor, Australian guy who won one of the stages here, the first stage that he'd won in his entire Tour de France career. 20 times he's done this amazing race. So it's just an extraordinary feat of human endeavour. And Wimbledon final is on tonight. Australian men won the men's double last night, and an Australian is in the men's final tonight. By the time you hear this, you will know. So, but anyway, Wimbledon is a big deal for many people. All these sports people are earning lots of money by entertaining the mob who are locked up in their homes in many instances, or who have lost their careers, lost their jobs. Interesting question of how long big money for sport will continue. I invite you to contemplate that question. I might do a show on that one day as to where's the money coming from for this entertainment. And other than that, Julie and I continue to have a wonderful life experience because we're both pursuing our passion. And that's the key to enjoying life on a moment-by-moment basis, despite the challenges that we have to face. So I hope that's the way you're living your life, or that this show helps you to live your life that way. So, coming to the end now, if you're new to the show, stick around. The foundational principles of the show and more background about me are continued. Those of you who are regular listeners or viewers, well, you've heard all that before, so you don't want to hear it again. But if you haven't heard it, it's worth listening to. And if you haven't listened to it for a while, it's worth listening to, because I've read what I've said in that subsequent part, and there's some useful principles. So if you've got time, listen in. Again, thanks for watching or listening. And until our next show, may your week be full of health-giving and energy-giving passion, learning, fun, fulfillment, challenge, and ever-increasing self-awareness. Bye for now. See you next week. And now, for viewers and listeners who want to know more about my background and what else I do with my life, as well as the foundational principles of the show, here we are. Since 1993, when I left my legal career, a career that I love, to become Australasia's passion provocateur, I have inspired and provoked and educated and motivated people all over the world to discover and pursue their passion. I have helped people via the books that I've written, via speeches at conferences, via in-depth team building programs, workshops over 1, 2 or 3 days, or over 3 months, 6 months. And I've coached people of all ages, one-on-one, from small, medium and large enterprises, government enterprises, helping them to identify the often tiny changes that can make a massive difference. One of my core principles is that freedom is what makes us truly human. That's why one of the greatest threats that government imposes on you to force you to observe its laws is the threat of imprisonment, the loss of your freedom. Just think about that. Government says, if you don't behave yourself, we're going to put you in jail. No, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to lose my freedom. That's a reminder to you of why freedom is so important. Without freedom, you and I are not much different to animals. If you were locked up in a cage for the rest of your life, how different would you be to an animal? This commitment to fighting for freedoms for all people is carried out by me primarily through 5 channels. Number 1, preserving the freedom to pursue your passion. Number 2, inspiring you to be able to be free through excellent health. Number 3, helping preserve freedom throughout the world through the expansion of industrial hemp, a magnificent agricultural crop, an almost miraculous crop that enables every community to thrive independently of government. In this way, the power of government to take away freedom is minimized. Number 4, fighting for freedom through legal strategies. So I do work as a legal strategy consultant, as an interface between clients and their lawyers. And number 5, as chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy and as a board member of the Australian Cartoon Museum, fighting for the freedom of thought and speech through uncensored comedy and humour, through avoiding political correctness in the comedic space. When you block freedom of speech, freedom of thought, that's the beginning of the end of your freedoms. The foundational principles for the Charles Kovess Show are founded on the formula SA plus P equals S. Your self-awareness added to your passion will guarantee that you are successful. And the best definition of success I have found in life is that success is the progressive realization of your worthy ideals. The progressive realization of your worthy ideals. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous principle and quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." You can see I'm wearing my red jacket. I wear my red jacket for all my shows. Red is the colour of passion, so that when you see me on the YouTube version, it reminds you that when you see red in your life, you ask yourself the question, am I pursuing my passion? What am I passionate about? Am I still passionate about that? What might I newly be passionate about? Each week I explore one big idea that can change your life. And it's just one big idea because there's a chance you will remember it. If I give you too many ideas, then we get confused and we don't do anything. Clarity leads to power. Confusion kills passion. Each week I share simple and practical resources that you've heard me describe in the earlier part of the show. A spiritual tip, a health tip, lyrics of a song, a book, a quote, and of course humour. This show is not politically correct. I have no intention of being politically correct. And I love certain addictions, including my addiction to great coffee, my addiction to exercise, my addiction to reading, and my addiction to certain other unmentionable in public type behaviours. Who would know what they are? This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. So if you don't like discussion of spirituality, this show is not for you. I promise you that I don't include anything in this show that I don't consider to be true and that I have not found to be useful in the work that I've done over the past 28 years, but also over the past 50 years in business, as a lawyer, as a consultant advisor. I only want to share stuff with you that is of value to you. Finally, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to contact me at charles@kovess.com. Again, thanks for watching and listening to my show. Bye.